Welcome back. It's good to see you again. We're continuing our devotional series through 1 Thessalonians 2:17 through 20. What is our hope, our joy, our crown? And of course, as we dig in, we're going to find out that Paul's hope, joy, and crown is the joining together of the believers, the Christians, in the very presence of Jesus. And so we looked at last time how Paul and Silas wanted to be with the Thessalonians who had just recently come to salvation, but they were driven away from their presence, and they moved on to the region of Berea. But their desire was to be reunited in person with the church. And what we find out today is that the passion for presence that they had for the Thessalonian converts was powerfully opposed and on a spiritual level. So let's review the verses here. We'll look at verses 17 and 18 today. But we, brethren, having been taken away from you for a short time in presence, not in heart, endeavored more eagerly to see your face, with great desire. Therefore we wanted to come to you, even I, Paul, time and again, but Satan hindered us. That's going to be our focus for the day, is there was a hindrance that kept Paul and Silas from being in the presence of the Thessalonians, and that this hindrance was not just people who opposed Paul, but spiritual forces at work, led by Satan himself. And oftentimes we look at our current circumstances through the eyes of a secular lens, that there is a natural explanation for all the things that we come against. But what we see as we get into the scripture and as we get into this passage in particular is that the early church viewed the spiritual reality as something very much real and active, and that God was actively at work on their behalf as much as Satan was at work against them. And it is ignorant for a Christian to deny the spiritual forces at work when we are trying to live a holy life. Satan opposed Paul from the start, and he forced the premature separation. What motivated the Jewish leaders to drive Paul out? What motivated them to come to the house of Justin and cause all the havoc there? It was because the devil was at work. He was not happy with the progress Paul had made there, and he drove them out. Now what's great is that because he drove Paul and Silas out by the hands of the Jewish leadership there, he drove them on to Berea, and he drove them to even write this letter, which became part of our Bible today. So God's work was greater than what the devil was about. But we would be naive to assume that there's no spiritual things at work in our lives, and that the devil has no interest in thwarting our plans and God's plans. But besides the fact that Satan tried to disrupt everything God was doing, Paul's desire remained to be reunited, and he had great confidence that that was going to happen, that they were going to be brought back together. I guess the question that is at work in my mind is, why does the devil hate our presence so much? In fact, I think this is a very timely question with the COVID-19 pandemic. Many churches are trying to find ways to meet. Society and culture is telling us we should meet, we need to be safe. And there's a mix in our own congregations as to whether or not we should try to get together, how safely we can do it, how many people should be present. Should we sing? And I think it's important that we handle these things and we try to be wise and we ask the Lord for help and guidance, but we also have to realize that there are spiritual forces at work, and that we know for certain that the devil does not like the church gathering. And while we might worship online and we might try to stay connected through social media or letters or however, it is also a reality that the word church means the assembling together, the coming together of the body of believers. That there's one body, Jesus Christ, and it is composed of the followers of Him. When we celebrate the Lord's Supper, we are united together in the one body, symbolized by the bread of that is broken for our sake. And so the devil doesn't like that, and the devil is going to try and disrupt the gathering of believers. In fact, believers have been persecuted and killed throughout all history, largely because they refused to not gather together. If churches just all said, nobody ever come together and stay home and worship in your own way at the same time, there would have been a lot less persecution in the ages, and a lot less Christians would have been found out. But there's a drive within the Christian to be joined together in person in the presence of one another. And Satan hates this. I think he hates this because it is a preview of what's to come, and that's what we'll focus on in our next gathering. But one of the great quotes I thought of I found when I was putting this together is about snowflakes. It says, "Snowflakes are one of nature's most fragile things, but just look at what they can do when they stick together." and that becomes one of the strongest forces in nature. And we compact those snowflakes into glaciers, and they're just unstoppable forces. And I think the church is like this. We are fragile on our own, but when we come together, we have this spiritual sense of how powerful we are and how strong we are united in the Spirit of God, the very creator of the universe, who is indwelling us. And coming to church reminds us of that fact. And that's one of the things I think that Satan hates, because one, it's a preview of his future. We'll look at that in our next devotion. But two, it is just a sense of strengthening. It's easy to pick us off one at a time on our own, but it's harder when we come together and we celebrate our great God and Creator. Martin Luther has a quote: "If you don't believe in the devil, it's because you've never tried to resist him." The devil is real. The devil is working. And there is a certain recognition that the Christian is to have, that in some circumstances there is a spiritual work going on. And that is oftentimes not a helpful spirit, but a malevolent spirit, that the devil sometimes can be at work. And so we need to rely on the Scriptures. Resist the devil, stand firm in the faith, and he will flee from you. We need to continue to overcome his efforts to shut down the church. And we need to try to come together, be together, stay connected, because if it upsets the devil that much, it must be much more powerful than you or I really imagine. I hope that encourages you. I look forward to seeing you in person, and I pray for you while we're apart. Have a wonderful week. God bless.